Stop. Okay, welcome world. Thank you for being there. This is Edward Bevilacqua, editor of La Voce magazine, and today we have Dustin Marcello, another attorney in Las Vegas, as part of our Best of the Best interview series. Dustin, thank you for taking the time to meet with me.
Thank you for having me.
And talk to our La Voce viewers and people around the world, because this is, as I said, this is live on YouTube around the world. Anybody could be watching this. And what's a little bit different about you than the other attorneys that we've talked to is you're the first one who's from here.
Yes, born and raised.
Okay, born and raised here. Life. And then I said, well, where's your dad from?
He is from Buffalo, New York.
Buffalo, New York. So suburb.
Yes,
or
a suburb.
A little
Batavia, New York, just outside of Buffalo.
Okay. And what brought your dad here?
To get away from the snow. What else?
No, is that what it was?
Yeah, 100%. That's what it was.
Okay. What did he do, or what does he do?
He is a craps dealer at the Orleans. He actually just retired last week.
Wow, wow. Now, when he first came here, what was he?
He was a craps dealer at the El Cortez, which I actually live next door to now. Which is
okay. And so you probably have a lot of stories, or your dad certainly has a lot of stories.
100%. He grew up with this town, and I did too. You know, I mean, I remember what was considered the edges of the town and how far they've now expanded to where they are today.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I moved here 3.5 years ago, and I still see a lot of road work going on. And I live down in Henderson, and I have people saying, "Yeah, when I moved here 12 years ago, the street ended there. That was the end." How old was your dad when you moved here?
He had just gotten out of the Navy. I believe he was around 25, 26.
Okay. So he was starting his life.
Got in a car with his buddy, and they said, we're out of here. We're out of the snow, and they just drove straight to Vegas, and that was it.
Was that their plan?
That was their plan.
Had he been here before? No,
he had never been here. He had seen TV, movies. He was familiar, but he'd always considered himself kind of a gambler,
got it.
Person that wanted to live
risk
that
taker.
lifestyle. Exactly. And he said, I wanted to come here, and number one, though, I want to away from the snow. I want somewhere that's in the desert where it's nice and warm and sunny, and you see the sun every day.
And what about bugs during the summer?
0 bugs here. That's the other thing he liked. In Buffalo, they have mosquitoes the size of little horses out there.
Yeah. So let's see, what year was that your dad came out?
He came out in the late 60s, early 70s.
Okay.
So I believe he got here in 73, I believe.
All right. And then, when did he get married? About?
He actually was never married. And then I was born in 1980, though.
1980. Okay. And at this time, your dad is a craps dealer at El Cortez?
He broke in at the El Cortez.
Okay. When you were born?
Yes. And he was there. Interestingly enough, after the El Cortez, every hotel he's worked at since then has since been blown up and turned into something new. So
wow,
that's
so what does that mean? Is that good or bad?
Well, I mean, bad for the Orleans, because the last place he worked was the Stardust, and so
okay,
and
he just retired from the Orleans.
He just retired from the Orleans.
Okay. Well, and I guess I can imagine he has just a tremendous number of stories.
Oh yes, and. Again, just from working in different places and the different characters that have come through, and he's always stayed a craps dealer. He didn't want to work in any type of management or do anything.
And now, where did you go to high school?
I went to Clark High School, and then that's another thing when you're growing up in a city growing so fast. I started at Clark High School, and by the time I graduated, I actually graduated from another school they had built because they were building them so fast.
And what was that?
Cimarron Memorial.
Cimarron. Okay, I don't know where that is. It's on the northwest side?
It's in Summerlin. It's considered
Summerlin. Okay, great, good. And then you decided to go to UNLV.
Yes.
Okay, why is that?
At the time, it was a local school, and I did want to stay close to home. I wanted to be. My parents were here. My mom and my dad was here. Plus, all your friends are living here. And I really didn't have an urge to go somewhere else. And I really like Vegas. I like living in Las Vegas. I like the weather. I like that, not having to worry about any weather related issues other than a little bit of heat.
Okay. Now, what do you say to our viewers who are not from Las Vegas about the heat? When people say it's too hot.
You don't have to shovel heat. That's the number one thing. It's a pain, when you're outside and you're actually doing something or you're stuck in a car, but 90% of the time you're in air conditioning, and this place is built around knowing that it's going to be hot.
Okay. Now, do you ever say to people, yeah, but it's a dry heat?
You say that, but to be honest, when it gets that hot, it really doesn't matter whether it's a dry heat or humid heat.
So I usually say, when people say that to me, I say, yeah, like a blast furnace.
Yeah, right. And it's surprisingly a little bit of windy here, but it is much nicer than, let's say, like in New York when the summers come. It's suffocating,
Right.
I mean, because at least don't have that. Right. You can get in the shade, and once you're in the shade, it's fine.
Okay. And so then you went to law school here.
Yes.
And how was that?
Law school was a really great experience here. We had a brand new accredited university that was a top 100 accredited university. They had a brand new facility, and that's what really made the decision for me. I considered at that point actually going to California, but then I said, why pay the extra money and the extra time and expense and be away from the parents, and when you had such a great school that was built here. So
yeah, I had sort of a similar story, except when I moved here to go to law school, there was no law school. So I ended up going to law school in San Diego.
And that's usually what ended up happening.
Yeah. And it's good that the state did that. And how is the law school recognized today? Is it a good school?
Yeah, it's actually broken into, I know that either the top 75 or the top 100. It's on the #1 tier of schools. So it's on the same tier of schools as anything in California, as anywhere in New York.
How many people in the law school?
Currently, I think they have students of about 100, 150 for their class.
Per class?
Per class, it's about 100, 150.
Okay. All right. So that's good size.
Yeah, it's very good size.
Okay.
With our population growth, it just about meets the needs of, getting over how many people actually retire or leave to just keep the same number of attorneys per person.
Yeah. Now, what do you think of the legal system here? And I mean relative to, so I come from San Diego and we have fast track.
Right.
So what do you think about here where it's not fast track?
In some ways, it's a positive thing. I think it gives you more focus on the individualized issues that are in a specific case.
Okay.
The negatives are you don't have the long case history, or a lot of decisions that are made. When you read a statute or look at something, you say, well, this can be interpreted this way or this way. A lot of other states, including California, have a long history where they say, yeah, we've already looked at that. Here's what it is. Here's how way we're going to do it. And here, they just haven't made all those decisions. They're still looking, they're still getting
in terms of precedent.
Correct. And so other states, they have a long history of saying, this is just how we're going to do it. And for better or worse, this is how we're going to do it. So you have clarity.
Sure.
Here, you don't have as much clarity. So on the good side, it requires a lot of negotiation, right? Because sometimes you don't want clarity. You just want to say, you might be wrong, I might be wrong. Let's just negotiate and be done with it, so.
Is there a lot of pressure by the judges to get people to settle informally?
Yes, there is. Is there
mandatory mediation or anything?
All the time. And in my opinion, I think a lot of that is a waste of time and money, only because before they started doing all that stuff, 2% of cases went to jury trial.
Okay.
After they implemented all these steps, all these procedures and everything, 2% of jury go to jury trial. So,
okay, nothing has really changed.
Right.
Now, let's see. I know, again, in California and San Diego, it's forms filing mostly. Do they do forms filing here?
They have tried to move towards a more forms related thing, but they just can't. There never seems to be an agreement on a standard.
Okay.
So everybody wants to do things their own little way or their own little niche and things like that. So.
Where do you come down regarding the Supreme Court? Were you in favor of or the appellate court? Were you in favor of that?
Very much so. It turns out, the devil's always in the details. The way they kind of set it up is not quite how I would have set it up. It's not a straight through, as in everything that goes there goes there. Right, and then goes to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Basically, what they're going to do is all goes to the Supreme Court, and they decide what they get to make decisions on. Which not quite how I would have thought to have set it up, but it's a start.
So what happens if could the Supreme Court say no, we don't want to send it to the appellate court? We'll look at it.
Yes.
Or do they say no appeal?
They can do whatever they want with the case first, and then they decide what ends up going.
They could say no merit.
Correct.
Or we'll look at it, or we'll send it to the appellate court to review this particular issue.
Correct.
Now, do you know of any other states that do it that way?
I don't, to be honest with you, because after I saw it and found out that it was going to work this way, I was actually surprised. I didn't think that would be how they would set it up, but it's one of those standard things where you have an entity that has a lot of power, and they don't really want to give it up immediately until there's more formalized system in place.
Okay, well that makes sense. Now, let me ask you this: regarding the election process here.
Yes.
Okay, so you grew up here. You might not know anything different, but I grew up in California, and in California, you don't have access to public officials.
Mm-hmm.
You don't talk to the government. You can't get to these people. One of the things that amazed me so much about Nevada is how accessible public officials are.
Yes.
Do you have any? I mean,
I got a
you
good,
grew up, okay.
Good story for you. When I went to the law school here, I wanted a letter of recommendation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was working at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. I was a food runner, and this is why I was in
Which
law
Ruth's
school.
Chris?
They've actually closed it since then, but it was on Paradise.
Okay, I knew that.
It was next to the convention center.
Next to the Brazilian?
Correct.
Okay.
Brian Sandoval came in to eat there, and I spoke with him, and he actually, obviously, he's a little older than me, but he was in the same fraternity as me, and it, you know, he'd understood that I was in law school, and I talked to him about it. And
what was his position at that time?
At that time, he was the lieutenant governor.
Okay,
and
it.
So
you're helping him at the table. You're working.
Right, and we just started talking, and next thing I knew, he had agreed to write a letter of recommendation for me to get into law school, and here I am. You know, so. But that kind of access to somebody of that caliber, who's now our governor,
sure.
you know, is highly unlikely in a place like New York City or anywhere else where you're a major metropolitan area.
Yeah, it's not in California. You don't see your representatives, your state representatives, your state senators, your federal. You don't have access to these people. They are just so insulated.
Right.
And so, do you have an appreciation for how accessible people are?
Yes,
here?
Very much so. I mean, you know, there's always good and bad on every side of that, but you know, but you do have you really are part of the community with these individuals. You know, Vegas is a very metropolitan area. There's 2.5 million people here.
Yeah.
But the core people that have been here for a very long period of time is surprisingly small. And the people that you grew up with, you know, I know you'd interviewed Mr. Mike Maselli.
Yeah.
You know, you really do start to. We call it the smallest big city in the country. You know? So. And so you really do start to develop a relationship with these people that are your representatives, because they really do. You do have a close relationship. You actually will see them. You'll actually see them out. You'll run into them in the grocery store. You know, you'll be able to talk to them about issues that affect you.
And would you say the attorneys here are collegial with one another?
Very much so. And when we do, you know, they have a famous phrase. You know, criminal is civil and civil is criminal. Okay. You know, so. On the criminal defense side that we represent, we have a very collegial relationship with the DAs, as in, you know, we realize we'll get in there and we'll fight it out and we'll, you know, yell and scream and do what we got to do for our clients. But in the end of the day, you know, we realize that we're both doing a job. And as far as being personal or you know, being abrasive, you know, personally or getting personal on attacks or anything else, that just doesn't happen very often.
So would you say that the legal system here is good if you come out here to do business? It's fair?
Certainly. You know, just like anywhere else, you know, when you have attorneys, I mean, obviously the only reason you end up needing an attorney is because you can't work it out yourself, right? Yeah. So usually you've already hit loggerheads with people, and that's why I said the 2% of people that end up going to trial is because at some point you just need somebody else to tell you which one are you going with.
Right.
A lot of times it doesn't even mean either one of you is wrong. It just means somebody independent that's pulled back from the situation is going to have to say, look, for better or worse, it's this one, you know?
Okay.
And so as far as the access to the legal field and the community, I think it's competitive with anywhere else. And I think that you actually get a better product out here because we aren't inundated with, you know, our bar numbers here are in the tens of thousands. In New York, in California, in the 200s of thousands. Right. So I think it ends up with a little bit more quality and a little more accessibility for legal work here. So.
Got it. Okay, so in terms of quality of life out here, what do you say?
I believe, and just as growing up here, that it is fantastic. You have a very consistent weather and how you do things. And my favorite thing is you're 3 hours or 2.5 hours from anything you want to do. If you want to go skiing, there's mountains, 2.5 hours. You want to go to national parks, 2.5 hours the other way. You want to go to the beach, 2.5 hours the other way. But then
where's this beach that's 2.5 hours?
What's that? You can get down to Manhattan Beach in about 2.5 to 3 hours of LA.
Right. Okay. So you're having a wide, you're not saying a beach at Lake Mead.
Right. Well, and you also have those too. You have your own, like I do enjoy Red Rock Canyon very much.
Okay.
I visit
so
there
that's,
at least.
What, an hour?
About 45 minutes.
Okay, less than an hour.
You have Mount Charleston.
And how far is that?
That's about, what, Mount Charleston? Or,
yeah.
About 45 minutes.
Okay.
And then they have cabins, they have skiing up there,
Sure.
the whole thing.
So you have the lake. So you have the lake, you have Red Rock for hiking, you have Mount Charleston for hiking, snow. Of course, you have the desert.
Yes, you have the desert if you want to explore that. I don't have too much interest in going out into the middle of the desert, but you'd be surprised how many. There's also a ton of hidden oases and little tiny campgrounds where there's just a
Really?
large pond or trees, and there'll be these campsites where there's nobody around, and you'll have them all to yourself, and it's very interesting. There's a lot of that around. It's a little more off the beaten path, and you kind of have to look for them a little more.
Okay. Now, when you have naysayers, when you run across naysayers about Las Vegas, what do you say?
I've actually ended up living in a lot of different major cities for brief periods of times for various reasons. And I've noticed that no matter what city you go to, the people that live there say, this city is terrible for this reason. We don't have enough this, or there's too much snow. So basically, when people are naysaying, it's just because of where they're at, because they think they want to be somewhere different. But the minute they get somewhere different, they say, oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And there were so many things that I really liked about there. And some of the things have taken time here. With the food was a lot of just fast food here for a long time.
Yeah.
It has now grown leaps and bounds. You can get some of the best pizza I've ever had, and that includes New York City or anywhere else. Pizza Rock.
Pizza Rock. That's down off of Fremont?
It is. It's downtown. Some of the best pizza I've ever had. Some of the most unique
I've heard
pizzas.
people talk about that.
And
the guy won awards or something,
yeah,
right?
He won in Italy.
Award or something?
7 of the pizzas won awards in Italy, worldwide awards, the whole thing. And but again, that's relatively new, and just the general pizza has improved dramatically. You got Grimaldi's, you have that. So the pizzas, just generally being able to go out for food to find unique food items, it's gone leaps and bounds. It's taken, it's gone to improve that where you didn't always have that before. So.
Sure.
So for the naysayers, I would say, look, there's always going to be something that you want and that you don't like about a specific city. And again, people don't like the heat, the things like that. But the overall positives here are so dramatic that I think it well outweighs the negative.
I think I remember a statistic that in the year 2007, that Nevada or Las Vegas was the fastest growing major city for like 20 years in a row. You ever heard that statistic?
It actually started in 1980 when I was born. It went from the population when I was around 10 years old was about 750,000. By the time I was 20, it was 2.5 million.
Wow.
And that's without technically what you would consider a growth rate. It was just people moving here and flooding here.
I remember when I first got my license here in Nevada, just chatting with the person, very friendly, not like California at the DMV here. And a couple things struck me. One was everybody seemed to have this attitude of people come to Las Vegas because they want to, not because they need to. And so we have to make everybody feel welcome. And this was at the DMV. And then she said, we have about 500 people a week coming from California getting Nevada driver's license, which, that's a big number just from that DMV.
Yeah.
So it's, okay. So let's see, we've gone a little bit longer than we thought, but any last statements to the jury?
The whole focus on this segment is about Las Vegas and what the positives are for here. I think there are many things that you may be surprised that don't fit in quite into the TV or the magazine narrative of what you might expect from a city. But you have all the benefits of a big city and all the closeness and the individuality of a small city. And I think with all those and with the weather and the sunshine every day can really improve people's lives. And it's been an excellent place for me. And I would recommend it for anybody that's thinking about moving.
Would you say this is the epicenter of Italian American culture today in the U.S.?
At this point, I would definitely say that historically, maybe not always the case, but it has definitely grown into the epicenter of Italian American culture today.
Okay. Well, Dustin, thank you very much for your time. This has been great.
Thank you very much for your time as well.
Okay.